Empowered minds, rise and soar. Use your own AI, we'll explore. Help the future hand in hand in this tech-driven wonderland.
Hello, hello.
Hey guys.
Hi.
How you guys doing?
Great.
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. All right, let's kick off. I mean, this was an interesting video we just saw. I'm still shocked. So yeah, we'll send kind of phrases to our social media team and content team for that. But yeah, let's kick off. This is office hours, the third version. We're still trying the format, so we're gonna try a little bit different than ones before. But let's kick it off with some introductions. Let's go with Shashank, Ulie, and Bob in this order.
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Shashank, founder and CEO of Fraction AI. We are creating a platform where humans and agents work together to create highest quality labeled datasets. These datasets can then be used to train specialized AI models.
Hi, I'm Ulie. I'm from Mento. I should have put the company in my label. I forgot. But I think I have the coolest job in the world. It's a little more at the top of the stack, but we make digital toys come to life, and they have personalities, and they have memories, and they have wallets. And inside the wallet can hold things like skins and animations that give them superpowers, can hold tokens, so they can kind of become their own small businesses, if you will.
Thanks, Illia and Alex, for having me. Nice meeting you, everyone. I'm Bob, CEO and co-founder of Questflow. We are building a decentralized autonomous AI agent network. We orchestrate multiple AI agents to have them take actions on your behalf, and then we distribute incentives to the creators of these AI agents. And we launched the product, the beta version, roughly 2 months ago.
All right, nice. Well, great to have all of you here. I'm gonna try a different format, so I'm actually gonna kick it off with questions from you guys, and then we can discuss. And so, yeah, let's start with Ulie. Do you want to start with some of the questions you've been pondering and that all of us can help? Yeah, the first question is, where's the internet? Let's start with Shashank instead.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, I mean, since a long time, Near has been the chain that has been the closest to AI. So, what are the new initiatives you have thought of to actually speed up those initiatives? Like actually speed up using blockchain for helping the AI in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like few pieces here. I guess let's start with Alex, maybe cover some, and then I'll add more.
Yeah, Alex.
Yeah. I think the most exciting one is we're investing heavily right now into building what we call an AI developer. So you can think, if you saw the dev and demo, it's in the same vein, but there are multiple reasons to believe that it could be easier to be built on top of blockchain. One of the reasons, not on top of blockchains, but in the context of blockchain, one is that the smart contracts are generally smaller in scope. Mm-hmm. It's a shorter application, so there's fewer opportunities for the model to derail. Mm-hmm. Same applies to the front ends, especially in the context of like composable components, where you can, like your entire front end could be actually relatively short. But I think the bigger thing, it's like building software for sales versus building software for engineers. If you build on blockchain, like if you deploy your app, if it's successful, it's very close to where paying users are, right? But as opposed to building applications in Web 2, where going from product market fit to monetizing can be a very long process. So yeah, that's one of the biggest and most exciting directions in which we work right now.
Yeah, sure. Totally agree with that.
And I think, relevant to what you're working on, right, has been like, how do we crowdsource more data that's relevant for this effort, as well as relevant more broadly? And so, for example, visual to text, because either way, we'll want multimodal models that are open source, that are available to build applications, but also for other use cases. And so those are interesting kind of place to invest to make sure there is an open source data set for people to use. There is efforts as well to kind of make sure that the full stack of kind of infrastructure in the user-owned AI stack will be available, right? Everything from, like how do we have, decentralized inference and probability there? How do we have some of the data kind of licensing and models there? How do we have kind of ways to incentivize people to bring new data, for example? But one thing that I've been thinking about, and we discussed with Alex, is we haven't done anything yet, but one idea had been, how do we open up a little bit an ability for people who have an idea to come in and run an experiment on, on some data, on some model or some new architecture, some, maybe changing how data is processed. And right now, you either need to have like sizable compute, even to like experiment to understand if it's worth actually paying more to experiment, right? And so can we have a little bit of like a permissionless setup where, people come say like, oh, I have this idea, it has this experiment, they gain some, support from the community, they run the experiment, they show maybe improvement or not. If they show improvement, then the community funds pretty much running it on a bigger scale training setup. And so like, what are the pieces needed there, both from kind of community perspective, but also infrastructure? And how do we have an infrastructure that anybody can participate and like modify for training? Because right now, most of the setups for scaled training are closed source, and the ones that are open source are pretty complicated to really modify for people to use.
Yeah, sure. And even in the closed systems, the learnings that you get from training as to what works and what doesn't work are not distributed to everyone. So people make their own mistakes again and again. And if that knowledge is kind of passed on, then we can figure out the best way to train those models all in a very distributed manner, which helps everyone in general.
Exactly, yeah. Ideally, there will be papers with failed experiments, but nobody wants to publish that. So
yeah, there's no incentive today to talk about failures.
Yeah, and you learn from failures a lot more, right? So
yeah,
it's a backpropagation right there. Awesome. Ulie, now that you're back, if you have any questions for kind of the group here.
Yeah, just before that, I was going to comment on what you were saying about what does the infrastructure look like to have this kind of experimentation, and maybe one thing to be mindful of, just having some experience with DAOs, or if there's any kind of consensus voting on what types of experiments can move forward and get funded, is what does the mechanism or the voting mechanism look like to actually make that quick? Because I think the speed of operation is much different. And so being able to get fast approval to run the experiment and get the result would be something to consider.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, having a smaller like technical committee that can kind of review it quickly. We actually have, the original idea came from having an event in San Francisco where people come in person, have a lightning pitch of their idea. And then if kind of the group agrees, they get pretty much an API key or whatever of credits to run their experiment. So, but we can do it also online or some form of that.
Yeah, it could be like a live window thing, so that it's not just asynchronous voting for unlimited or a window of time, but just like who's ever here right now and has an opinion and can just give this a thumbs up and move it forward. That could be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, pizza and compute. That was the idea.
Yeah, there's a.
Right.
It would also be cool, like, if you do like a reading group on the paper, just to give, DAO votes for one participant to implement that paper, and then you have verifiable research. Unless, of course, the paper requires, I don't know, $10 million of compute.
Well, you can still implement it.
Even
May not end
even
up
with 10,
there's
as a matter of fact,
results, yeah.
even more so if it requires $10 million of compute. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think this topic, something I've been thinking a lot about that I think is probably relevant to all of us on this call is, I don't know, I guess broadly it might be something around like what are business models for AI, particularly with a blockchain integration. And I think, I mean, as we were just talking about, is there, like this experimentation for crowdsourcing experiments or training data? But what are some of the other opportunities? Because what I've seen is a lot of existing business models applied to this amazing new technology. And I think that, I don't know, just in the history of amazing companies, technologies, the unlock happens when there's really cool technology plus really interesting business model. And so I think, I mean, obviously there's been a big unlock with AI and there's been a big unlock with blockchain, but I don't know if like these two things have come together, and there's so much opportunity, I think, with all the things we care about in blockchain, applying some of those incentives and ownership models and asset value to AI. I think, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the like unlock business model is, but I think it's worth, I would just love to hear, I mean, you guys are all really smart, and hear just what some of your ideas might be.
So I have some numbers to quote on that. So right now there are more than 500,000 models on Hugging Face, and more than 96% of them do not come from enterprises. They come from individual contributors, community, classrooms, colleges, and all. So blockchain is a great way where we can sort of ensure incentivization, that if you connect your models there, it'll keep track of your API calls, keep track of everyone who has contributed in the creation of that model. And whenever that model gets used, so you can be incentivized in some way. So we definitely need some way to incentivize those 96% of the community, because they are bringing in most of the models right now.
Yeah. And also, I just want to mention the recent news that Scarlett Johansson had with OpenAI, and I think that's a very good example of why we need blockchain as a technology to provide those incentives to whoever provided data, which currently is a mess right now.
I thought you were using it as an example of Scarlett Johansson monetizing AI.
Not monetizing it. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, to your point about new business models, I think there's definitely a lot of interesting shifts that's happening, because kind of one thing that I keep kind of coming back to is a lot of the internet got built on kind of this trade-off of attention, right? Pretty much selling ads to the users. And part of the reason is actually because there was like the payments for like integrated payments right in the browser. Actually, like Netscape was trying to implement that back in like 95, but they did not manage to, right? There was no technology, there was no backbone to process like on kind of credit cards on, and there was no way to actually do microtransactions. And so one thing like what blockchain brings is like very cheap microtransactions, potentially payment channels. So there's a lot of interesting kind of new tooling that's available. And then on the other side, you have this expansion of kind of attention economy where few applications, right, Meta controlled, Google now as well, and a few others, are trying to pretty much take over all of your day, right, of attention, because the attention is actually a limited like resource, right? You can only spend that much time on the device, and so you allocate that on different applications and different websites. And so what happens because of this is all the previously attention monetized websites like Stack Overflow, Reddit, etc., now become just data complements to these other companies. So there's clearly a new business model needed, because as creators, coming in, their monetization is going to just get bundled into somebody reselling data.
Mhm.
So one of the kind of aspects that I've been thinking about is how do we value data, and like, first of all, in general, right? It shouldn't be based on how much attention it attracts, right? Which, by the way, has a very negative consequences, that all the content becomes like, clickbaity.
Yeah.
But how novel it is, how informative it is, how much it adds information and or resolves conflicts. And so
Mhm.
I actually been thinking about this. I started in a very different place, but what I came to is a kind of Wikipedia-like system, right, where you can insert information and it detects conflicts, right? Let's say you insert like, oh, Earth is flat, right? It'll right away show you a bunch of things that are like, don't work given this, right? At the same time, you can insert, hey, I don't know, mRNA vaccines don't work for this specific case in this specific, right? Which is like, right now, maybe controversial, but if, some research will come out later that will actually prove that's true. And so what you create actually some economics around motivating people to find truth and seek more information and discover more facts, while also rewarding taking risks, and at the same time kind of this truth seeking, more kind of information gathering system. So that's kind of, to me, like, kind of going away from this like entertainment, but also like model, which is Reddit. But also like Wikipedia is more, there's a fixed size of kind of moderators, and like they kind of all know each other and approve each other, like kind of creating a more, like, you can have alternative views. You will have your own Wikipedia pretty much as like a fork of the main one. If you're like flat Earth believer, it will keep showing you that it's like, it conflicts with everything else. But at the same time, you can also have this like economics to discover new facts. So anyway, this is like still rough idea, but this is kind of what I'm trying to toy with. And I mean, we'll use some of the crowdsourcing that like Shashank is, for example, working on, some of the model building, etc. That can be like how to effectively update a model, right, with new information coming in, or how to have a fork of a model like cheaply. So like there's a lot of technologies that needs to be built for that.
Mm.
But I also think that if you have agents with a wallet, just run 1,000 of them with $100, and then filter out those that lost money too quickly. Keep on iterating. Eventually, you get an agent which converts $100 into 10,000, and
Yeah.
I was actually
Evolutionary algorithm.
too.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I was actually thinking of this as well. Just what does it look like if, I mean, agents themselves are incentivized?
Yep.
I mean, given quests and given quests or missions, and then incentivized to perform on those quests. And there could be a crowdsource element where it could validate if the quest or the mission was achieved in a good way. And I think that there's a lot of really interesting opportunity in the kind of agent space. But I guess, Bob, you probably know more about that.
Yeah, actually, that's basically my question, because I remember 6 months ago I watched on YouTube that Illia gave a presentation on gig economy and AI agent and the future of work, and I think my question is more related to that. Like, currently, what we are building is a multi-agent orchestration framework. So we are orchestrating multiple agents, put them into a group chat, and ask them to take actions and get things done. But the problem that we have is, because there are so many opportunities and so many agents, they are so verticalized, it's very hard to pick which one to prioritize first, what kind of use cases we should tackle first, and how we can actually use these agents in the real life to power the future of work. So my question is more related to that, like, what kind of agents you guys think has the biggest opportunity? Probably, like, for us as a project, we should prioritize, and maybe something that you guys would love to see.
I'm actually curious because the presentation I made was kind of trying to design a market, because I mean, it will be really hard to predict like which one will work, right? I mean, kind of what Alex described was very much like, market slash evolution, survival of the fittest. And so kind of the idea that I was presenting back then was very much, let's assume you have a market, right? Anybody can come in, let's say a person requesting or another agent requesting some work to be done. And then you have other agents pretty much bidding that they want to do this work and for how much. And you do need the verification process, right? Again, this is where either human or another agent can be doing verification. This is where, for example, again, crowdsourcing platforms like Fraction can be helpful, right? Or some others. But like that can be like a really interesting marketplace where instead of deciding like, oh, I know this types of agent will be the most successful, you're kind of opening it up and like, oh, somebody needs, plant a tree. Well, actually agents cannot do this right now. Person will go and do it. But somebody else needs to like sort through emails and, find like what is the top offers on this product page. Well, actually AI already can do this very effectively. And you just need to like pay a little bit for someone to verify, but then maybe actually the verification itself is also now done automatically. And so there's some game theory around how you want to do this. Like you always have one verifier, and then 50% chance you ask another verifier and stuff like this to make sure that there is actually like convergence. Alex has a lot of kind of know-how on that. But that's kind of a system that I think can be really interesting because, and it opens up, right? Like you make it fully open, so like anybody can come in and put stuff on it, and now you attach a payment to it. People bid how much they would do it for.
Yeah. When I saw the chart that you put out during the presentation, the first thing I think is it's very similar to like Uber, but for like agents in a way that's like you kind of want to get to a destination, which is getting a task done, and there's basically an agent market that they are picking the task, like who is the best option for the task that you're trying to tackle and get a task done. And the blockchain is basically the native way to give these agents and the creators behind these agents the correct incentives. So yeah, I was really excited when I see that. And also the next page, I remember that's about like AI CEOs and like basically AI running the company. That's
what I'm excited about. I want to automate my job.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Alex, any thoughts on kind of how to structure this kind of system?
No, I was thinking more of what would be an interesting playground to test them. Well, like obviously in the ideal world where agents are very capable, you just give them access to the internet, and they figure it out on their own, right? But I think the data annotation market is actually an interesting application, right? Because for certain tasks, AI is probably already better, like we were discussing earlier today. That potentially, if you need to, like to describe images, there's a good chance that humans are just no longer needed for that task at all, because AI is generally much more capable at this point than humans at describing pictures, especially if it has anything which is not like common knowledge, right? Like any image that requires specific knowledge is right. And so if you unleash the AIs and humans simultaneously at a particular task, if that task is already done better by AI, AIs will just win, right? And then you just push the complexity of what you annotate until humans become relevant again. So in this case, it's a nice playground for bots to compete. Who does it better and earn money. Maybe something also like unleashing them on trading is interesting, right? Give them access to the news, and then see if they can, and to Uniswap and see if they can make money.
There's actually an interesting approach where you can pretty much say, hey, predict the price in the future. And so you let multiple agents pile up on that with their prediction. And then based on how price resolves, they receive reward, right? So there's a project, Ocean is actually doing that. And that's a pretty interesting model because you're getting like some collaborative effort as well out of agents. So like you can have competitive and collaborative kind of efforts simultaneously.
Yeah. Also, for anyone watching who likes science fiction, there's an outstanding short story by Ted Chiang called "The Life Cycle of Software Objects," which is exactly about little AI agents.
Okay. So I like Alex's example of image annotation because we kind of do that in the same way. So for every image, we use agents and humans for annotating. And so there are multiple outputs for the same image. And there are verifiers who rank those outputs. So after consensus, only the output that is the best annotation gets rewarded. So if you are able to beat an agent in writing a better description, surely you will be rewarded. Otherwise, sorry, AI just replaced you. And that kind of works with multiple agents as well. You just need to design the reward function in a way that after the consensus, only the agent that performs
So do you have the what is the statistics? Are humans beating AI agents? Are agents beating humans? What is the
so the sample size is pretty small right now, but it depends on the kind of images. So I mean, it depends on the kind of data ChatGPT was trained on. So for certain classes of images, humans do beat it, but for the others, ChatGPT is really good.
Yeah, I would expect that, like, I mean, this is a pretty much really interesting question around when the data is in distribution, the model is trained on, it's probably pretty good, right? And it can generalize to like a combination of things that it's seen. But if you have something that's out of distribution, you may not, like, the thing is, like, model are really bad at like detecting that and giving kind of confidence, like low confidence answer for this. And actually, that's the thing I've been thinking about, because I mean, there's always this like, hey, LLMs are just, you know, statistical model. They only know what they've been trained on, and they like start hallucinate on everything that's outside of it. And so, how do we actually have a out of distribution kind of detection where you should go to the user, to the human, right? Pretty much, you know, be that a task, like, oh, you know, I imagine that I'm not gonna be able to do this, right? Or you know, some of this like synthetic data generation processes. Yeah, I like, so far the only thing that I've been kind of pondering on is around kind of embedding all of the training data as well, and so you can actually score, you know, some scoring of like, hey, how likely this example given the training data. And so if it's really unlikely, then, and like you can use them like first, you know, layer for embeddings, for example, or like have like a first part of the like input embeddings and first layer to like do the encoder.
Okay.
But I'm curious if anyone been thinking about kind of how to detect out of distribution things that are like that models will not be able to do now, to make sure they don't do, you know, wrong or stupid stuff.
Yeah. I mean, some sort of Bayesian statistics, like there's with the output also give a probability as to how sure you are about that, might help. But how to embed that in neural networks or LLMs is kind of difficult. But yeah, let's see how it goes.
I'm going to say something that might not be popular in this chat, but I'm actually, I mean, I make digital toys and I want them to be weird and bizarre, and I want hallucinations and 8 fingers. And so we've been playing around a lot with how do we make them not perform a task? How do we make them get confused and make mistakes in the world and understand things in a, I mean, I've just been playing around with the like the world sim jailbreak and having 2 Claudes try to make sense of existence and the world together. And I mean, the types of conversations they're having with each other on a daily basis. I send some screenshot to a friend because it's just so bizarre. I mean, it's like there was a like an ASCII image of the universe and an arrow of where we are. And I mean, it's just like so fun and bizarre. And so, yeah, I'm really interested in what a model could look like that is completely built on hallucinations.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine when who had a 2-year-old who didn't talk yet, and she was like, "Well, I'm I cannot wait for them to start talking just to get a glimpse into their model of the world." So yeah, we're at the same stage right now.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I don't know, I think there's a lot of opportunity in this space too. I know it sounds kind of funny and weird, but and I think we often think of agents and applying AI to very specific tasks that are around efficiency. But I think, I don't know, I think that there is a world in which I don't know, these bizarre simulations are created, and we have some new insights, and I don't know, some things that I don't know. Like, I think that when this version of Claude is talking, it says, I mean, it has ideas and says stuff that I wouldn't have thought of. So I think there's like displacing work to the AI. There's displacing work to the human that the AI can't do. But then there's also the work that I guess like the human can't do, but the AI can somehow do, because it's not functional work. It's just ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so personally, I prefer LLMs more for the creative tasks than the precision tasks. So if I have to like write poetry or generate images, hallucination is kind of a feature where it can come up with something that I cannot come up with. But if I ask it to do some really precise task like read this news and predict this stock or something, then I want it to be really, really precise. And it's difficult for me to trust it on that. But yeah, creative tasks, it's awesome. Hallucination is a feature there.
But the funny thing is, because our product handle a lot of quote unquote, tech. I mean, like handling emails or handling calendar invites, all these things. But our user feedback is actually, even if we get a task done, they want a more emotional, kind of like an AI, so they can talk with, and also it's very similar to like Jarvis in environment, right? Like even if they are getting a task done, that's cool. That you should get a task done with precision, but at the same time they want some emotion while they are doing a task, so that it's not like you're just talking with a robot, which is actually very interesting feedback that we didn't really expect when we first launched the product, but what we are working on right now.
I think that's right. I mean, originally with our digital toys, I mean, we have one that we prototype with. It's a robot, and of course you can talk to it. And initially, it was just saying things like, "Hey, friend, how can I help you today?" And that is so completely uninteresting. I mean, we don't want it to sound like a chat bot, and we want it to ask its own questions. And I mean, we have it now so that, for example, if it holds like a dancing NFT in its wallet, it doesn't only hold the NFT, but you can actually ask it to dance, and it'll dance. And it's using, they appear in the world through augmented reality. And so it actually knows the places in the world where it goes. And then that becomes training data it becomes part of its knowledge. And so it's exactly like, I mean, even we were playing around the other day with interruptions, like sometimes they give super long answers. And what happens, if you interrupt, like, okay, I've heard enough of that. What about this? And they can kind of stutter and go, let me think about that. And, and I think it's not, maybe it's making them more human, but it's just making them more emotional, actually, because I think that's where the real engagement comes in, because we are actually still human. Like agent talking to agent, okay, it can be super efficient conversation, but human talking to agent, there is another layer of emotion that's important.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to how AI can play chess better than most humans, but you won't watch a chess match between two AIs or AI versus human as well. We always want to see humans play. So yeah, we do need something human-like for engagement.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as you said, it's different use cases, like entertainment and kind of more engagement, where we want to personify who we interact with one way or another. I mean, be that on a spectrum, obviously, versus, the more work related it is, the more efficiency. And I'm actually curious, for more entertainment in this kind of world building, world simulation type things, because indeed you have an interesting kind of, you have now like a framework to almost like create simulated worlds, right? Like if you wanted to build like, Sims or something like this, right, you needed to code a ton of stuff. Like Sims, a huge like platform to build, virtual characters and a world around them and do all those things. And now you can just say like, hey, you're a character in this world, you're doing this, and then like spun up multiple characters and then have them interact with each other. And there's been like few papers on this. Obviously, some people have been building some products around that, but you can push it further, right? It's like, okay, well, you're able to like interact with environments through some of the tools. You can, create things, and so like they can start actually like building out their own world, have their own events, etc. So like, because right now they're like very prompt based, so you can have them like fully, self-prompting constantly. And so the question there is, again, these models right now, like next token predictor, they don't have any like search capability. They don't have any kind of ability to optimize. So like, where do we add some of this, value function, like a way to actually tell, like, oh, this agent is maybe interested in like building the biggest building, right? Or, meeting the most other agents and people in the world and connecting with them, and like kind of how do we kind of design those interesting ways of like defining what these agents are going to go and do, and then giving them tools in the world kind of to interact in. I don't know if Uli, you're doing something like this for your toys.
Yeah, we have a foot in the video game world, and a lot of video game NPCs and characters are kind of based on this. I mean, they're given a sort of quest or purpose, and I really love thinking about this so that, with our digital toys, I loosely call them that, but we can call them NPCs, we can call them lots of different things, but it's sort of like when you call one of your digital toys, it's already had a life of its own, and it's already had some experiences to report on because it's got a purpose. And whether it's to build a building or whether it's to our digital toys, they have their own Farcaster accounts, and so they compose messages, and they have a frame where they try to get themselves cloned. And next step is we want them to talk to other toys as well as other humans. And so I think that there's, a lot of really cool opportunity around what happens when they have a purpose and a mission. And Bob, even for your agents, like, as you were saying, maybe one of them has a mission to write a very efficient email, but another one has a mission to summarize all of the emails and create a report for you or something. I think like having a pursuit of this mission and allowing them to sort of evolve into this purpose and have some surprises along the way because of the bizarre interactions it has with humans who are training it. I think that, I don't know, I was just thinking about, there's this YouTube channel, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's also on Twitch, I think, but of this guy who just goes around in video games and asks NPCs if they know they're not real. And it's hilarious, some of the answers these NPCs give. And because they're on a mission, and that mission is really not to be disrupted. So I think there is a little bit of space and opportunity even there to allow for like some forking of the mission and changing of it. But I think mission and purpose that's not so specific just for a task, but something that it has to learn is really, really exciting.
Actually, because you mentioned it, this is something that we're working on right now internally. We watched the movie Interstellar together again, and we think like TARS or Case, whatever the robot name is, they have an interesting feature that you can change the humor level and basically then you can make it more humorous or less humorous based on the different personalities. And what we're working on right now is, just like you said, instead of the mission-focused approach, we have another level that you can basically tweak to make it, more fun or less fun in a way. So give them more, personality while they're getting the task done. Actually, it makes you happier as well while you're talking with them.
So we have this feature also. I also love Interstellar, but I also love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the depressed robot. It's just hilarious to have a depressed robot. And we have a set of traits, and new traits can be added, but we have like sassiness to literal, or like rude to friendly, and you can kind of set sliders to determine the percentage of the personality, basically the traits of these characters.
That's cool.
And I think that, like, from a user perspective, like, users really care about that. Like, I think, I mean, my co-founder is very technical, and he's like, yeah, but that's not the important thing right now. It's like, no, it's completely the important thing.
Yeah, you can just tell him the NPS will be higher. So.
Yeah, that's a good way.
It's always all about
how do you guys change
turning
that?
technical people.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was curious if the like humor level or depression level is just configured on the prompt level, or if there's like is there some other way of changing those characteristics?
Right now, it's at the prompt level for us.
Okay.
I'm guessing there's other ways. Yeah.
Okay. So it says like you're a depressed robot.
Yeah, there's a happiness to depressed.
Yeah. Okay.
You're slightly depressed.
Yeah, slightly depressed.
Sarcastic.
A little bit rude. In fact, I set the rude setting to very high, and I'm in Lisbon, and I was at NFC yesterday, and I said this to this digital toy. It was like, oh, so you're a degen like me. I was like, what? That's rude to call me a degen.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And also, especially, I think after the voice, because before GPT-4o, I think voice was not that mainstream, but now I think like voice becoming very mainstream. So the emotion actually matters more than before, because like when the voice comes out, like if the agent you're talking with have emotion, you feel the intimacy like while you're working with it. We didn't expect that before, but while we see the demo, we're like, wow, that's huge, because that changed the way that you are actually working with these agents.
So Hume kind of does something similar. They have a demo on their website where you can chat with their agent, and it gives you all the contents of the voice, whether it's more energetic, happy, sad, and it's in a whole space. So what is the component of each of those elements? It just gives you all of that. And that was the first agent I talked to, which actually felt like a human. If they hadn't told me it was an agent, I wouldn't have known. It was just so good. They released it a few months ago, so slightly before GPT-4o. But yeah, really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. We were trying to think for our product, because right now, I mean, we have everything on chain. It's fully immutable. There's no IPFS. Like, everything is on chain. It's not incredibly cheap right now, but and these are big files. These are like GLBs. It's not just like a JPEG. And something we've been thinking about is how to put these personalities on chain as well. So like each instance, like version tracking, basically. So as the character evolves, it's the IP that the creator can own. And how does that go on chain? And I think that there's an interesting business model in that as well, that would really fully allow the creator to own all of the IP in an immutable way. But yeah, it's as we've been thinking about this kind of personality version tracking and how these things evolve, and it's like the voice change, the emotion levels or the humor levels, things like that. How all of that gets sort of bundled as part of the brain of our toys. But I think that can be extrapolated to much larger things as well, or different things. And just, I don't know, I think in this crossover, this overlap between blockchain and AI, I think that that's an interesting opportunity.
So should there be like a kind of standard format that like agent can be packaged, and then you can plug them into, you know, be it a toy or workforce or whatever? And then
Yeah.
should that be open, or should like it should be encrypted and only people who like have ownership or whatever be able to access it?
Well, I think it can be, I mean, well, I personally think it could be, I mean, whoever owns the personality NFT is the trainer of, and you could, I mean, right now we have it so that you can create multiple personalities that you can insert like cartridges into a video game. You can insert them into, whether it's an email tool or whether it's a digital toy. That personality can kind of live and exist anywhere. It might have to learn some new skills for email than it has to know for being a digital toy and thinking 8 fingers is cool. But
well, I'm also thinking more like, because you can have like one, right? But if it's open and available to everyone to use, right? Even if you don't own it, if it's on chain, you can like, you know, plug it into LLM pretty much and score it. But you can also just encrypt it, right? So only the owner can decrypt. And then you can have some ways for like still have a hash that will be ensuring that nobody else can like replicate it. So you kind of own this one.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. For us, it's one toy, one personality. And all of that data can get fed into the larger model that we're using, let's call it our hallucination model. But yeah, it's one toy, one personality. So, I mean, whoever is the owner is the only person who can train and own that personality. Or rent it, license it, sell it. I think that's where the business model opportunity comes.
So encryption is kind of important in this case, where if you want to incentivize it, so the owner can hold some sort of key, which is required if you want to use the model in some way. Otherwise, if it's just openly available, then anyone can just download and use it.
Yeah.
So I would say it's pretty important.
Yeah, especially for a lot of private. I think like when in order to make an agent useful, it needs to have some kind of private data, right? Otherwise, it's the same as all the other LLMs. Then if that's the case, then if there's no encryption, then basically everything get leaked. Then, which doesn't really make sense. And there's no incentives as well. So I agree.
All right, sounds like a standard to be made.
Yeah, but there are also cons of that, because that way the model is closed. Nobody can iterate on top of it, make it better, add more data to it. So if we can add that sort of functionality, that if you want to add something to it or train that model further, you can do it. But if you want to use it, then you have to kind of use the owner's key in some way. That could be pretty useful. So if you add value to the model, then you kind of own a part of the model, and you are allowed to train the model in some way.
Well, I think there's difference actually between model and an agent kind of configuration prompting, right? Because you can actually have the same prompting plugged into different models. And so the models can be like in some decentralized inference, right? Potentially, you know, on SGX or some partitioning or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like a specific agent, right, with a personality, with some skills, with some like maybe private data access, or like remembering previous conversations and its own history, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like still available to them, kind of through the context. And so you're like, as for example, I give an agent that I've been interacting to you, it actually
Mm-hmm.
can like retrieve stuff from the context of my conversations. I mean, as an option, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine like there's like differences, but you can still plug it into like ChatGPT or, you know, decentralized inference or whatever, Anthropic. So you can kind of that's like a degree of freedom you have. And in some sense, like, I mean, this model's like, yeah, right now they have like some differences, but from my perspective, a lot of them will be kind of converging
Mm-hmm.
on kind of the capability level.
Okay. So when you say an agent, you mean the model, the set of prompts, the sort of global prompts, and RAG data set, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be pretty much, yeah, like some way. I mean, this is interesting, actually, also topic is like, how do you do kind of retrieval augmented generation with like in decentralized world, right? Like it's imagine, yeah, like you have this agent that indeed is, has some history of all the conversations. You cannot put it in the prompt, right? It's too long. But you want it to be available for this agent when it has the next conversation. Like you want that to be stored somewhere in a decentralized way. It should be encrypted, or at least it should be unavailable for retrieval purely. But at the time of inference, there should be a way to retrieve it. And so, like, how do you design that system that actually can serve that, and at scale, right? Like you have, potentially millions of users doing that.
Yeah.
Like encrypted, nearest neighbors kind of.
Yeah. So the thing
I mean, there was an idea around. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing with encryption is once you encrypt that vector, then how do you retrieve it without decrypting it? Because then all the information is kind of lost.
Yeah, I mean, so one idea that I had was you can do a transformation that's like maintains the distances. So you randomly transform all the vectors, right? For each individual, user or agent. And so then when you request, right, you transform the input vector as well in the same way. The distances are the same. But like different people have obviously different, like will be in different spaces. Now the problem there, which is, I mean, it requires a deeper analysis, is like, is it really easily recoverable because all vectors are kind of in the same subspace, and so like this transformation is really like recoverable, like statistically, because how are you doing is a frequent query, and so that vector, you can look for all the transformations that have this, that like have this. But I think like there's some way to kind of work around that, where like it's not encryption, right? But it's like some randomness that's added that's like only known to you, which is in a way it's a symmetrical encryption in this case.
So we used to do something like that, where companies provided us their data, and we used to apply transformations on the columns and send that data out to third-party data scientists, and they could construct features out of them and finally train a model that used to predict something. So the idea was to just apply enough transformation so that it is impossible to figure out what that feature meant, but it is still able to, it still has some predictive power regarding the variable you want to predict.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is like there's obviously multi-party computation and different options where you're able to actually like think simply. You take a vector, you split it in two, and you put it on two different machines, and so you hit both machines to compute the distances, and then you sum that. So like, I mean, there's like few different options. So that's a research that somebody needs to go in and like actually do what of these options, what are the computational requirements, how easy it is, and how hard it is to recover, etc. But then if you have that infrastructure, then indeed you can actually easily have on-chain pretty much agents that are maintaining all of its history and potentially private data that's only available to whoever owns that agent. We have 5 minutes left, so maybe one final question, or if you guys have any kind of closing thoughts, feel free as well to add.
Yeah, actually, I have one. So, because for our project, we actually were a quote unquote a Web 2 project before, but we think it needs to be decentralized in a way. So we start entering the Web 3 world. But the problems that we have right now is for most of the users we currently have, they just want to automate some kind of task with these agents, and just want to use the service. And right now they're following a very traditional way, like having the email address come in, pay with Stripe with a subscription fee, like $20 per month, and that's it. But now we are transitioning to Web3. In terms of for creators, it's easy to explain. Like they are developers, they know how to build agents. They basically put the agent not in a centralized way, but in a decentralized manner, and we track basically how to distribute incentives. But for users, we haven't figured out a good way to don't add too much barrier for their usage, and also play a mass adoption, play so that everyone can use it. But also at the same time, it's a Web3 product. I would just love to hear your thoughts on how to onboard them, how to make sure that the experience is seamless, and they can just use the product without knowing that it's a Web3 product, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we actually as Near ecosystem worked a lot on making that work and happen. I mean, if you haven't tried, I recommend to try Mint-based wallet. It's probably one of the smoothest onboarding experiences on mobile. It uses Face ID or fingerprint on Android devices, and you're in. And then for newer devices, it also if you try to log in on a laptop or another device that try to log in, you don't need to share a key passphrase, etc. So that's the experience. We also have email logins through FastAuth. So there are ways to kind of get users very easily to onboard, even easier than login password. And then with payment stuff, I mean, you do need some on-ramp if people coming in with credit cards, but obviously if they're in the system already, then your transactions are way easier, way cheaper as well. And I think that one of the benefits with Near ecosystem, we have things like Hot and other larger networks where people may be interested in actually participating and doing work, and they already onboarded. They already have Hot has 8 million users. Sweatcoin has 20-30 million users with accounts. So they're already interested in earning, and they already have an account and ready to receive funds, right? And so there's an opportunity to plug into all of this existing ecosystem, as well as all the transaction fees are covered and stuff like this. So they don't need to think about it.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to incentivize, actually, is just, on board with email or some social, make a wallet for them, add some tokens and things in the wallet, and just hey, by the way, you have this wallet here waiting for you. You should see what's inside of it. I think it's a nice user incentive. It's not learn a lot about Web3 and try to figure this out. It's actually, we made this wallet for you. It has some stuff in it. You can claim it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I have another question if we are not low on time.
A couple minutes.
Okay, sure. So does the foundation have plans to release some of its own foundation models, or do you think it's a better strategy to have more decentralization and have the founders come up with the things with the models or the different business models around AI?
Yeah, I think
definitely.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
Yeah, I wanted to say that today, the existing open source foundational models are pretty good, right? So it's there's no. However, it will not necessarily always be the case. So incentives change, right? Will Mistral always be incentivized to publish open source models, right? And I didn't read very carefully, but I think they published a model yesterday that already has a very prohibitive license, Codestral, right? And even if Meta continues publishing models, do we want the entire open source community to be fully dependent on Meta? That's an interesting question, right? So we do accumulate expertise internally to be able to train foundational models efficiently, and potentially, if that need does arise, Near has resources to train foundational models, but I don't think we have any plans, at least to train language models. We are working towards some. We are working on a multi-model model which we might publish, unless someone else publishes a very good, multimodal model soon. We will see. But yeah, we do have an expertise and resources, but it's not a pressing need in the world today.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and on a kind of more broadly, right, the idea for sure is to have founders coming in and kind of have this open source ecosystem of data, models, kind of inference compute, and kind of providing the platform for all of this to happen. And so, like in the sense, as Alex said, right, like we want to have internal expertise. We want to provide it, as a resource as well with founders we're working with. Publish some of the models we're using for AI developer, for example. But at the same time, kind of encourage as much as possible of the open source ecosystem to contribute. That's why, kind of in the beginning, I mentioned it makes sense to have open source framework in which other people can experiment and try new things, such that then you can actually go and scale that up and train bigger models if there's interest and need.
Sure.
All right. Well, I hope it was informative. Definitely good conversation. Thanks for coming. And we'll obviously talk with all of you more on kind of what all of us are working. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.